What would you do with a time machine? Einstein used it to erase Hitler from history, and it led to a lot more war. This is the complete timeline of Command and Conquer Red Alert. Red Alert starts in our world. Archduke Ferdinand is assassinated, World War I, Russia becomes the Soviet Union, Hitler rises in Germany, and Stalin rises in the Soviet Union. But in the aftermath of World War II, Albert Einstein creates time travel and uses it to go back in time and remove Hitler from history. But without the threat of Germany, Stalin's Russia's power grows unchecked, and Stalin invades the rest of Europe to see his dream of a Russia that spans coast to coast come to fruition. He had a Roman Empire thing going on. And in response, the European nations formed the Allied forces to stop the USSR. And the first order of business is rescuing Einstein from a Soviet base. The Soviets based their technology on Tesla, protecting their bases with giant lightning coils. But the Allies have weapons based on Einstein's designs, and that tips the balance in their favor, and they rescue the scientist. With Einstein secure, the Allies score some strategic victories, but the USSR does manage to conquer Greece. The Soviets push through Europe, spurs the United Nations to form the Global Defense Agency to support the Allies. But behind the scenes, the Soviets have their own plan for victory: the Iron Curtain. The Allies, along with their commando Tanya, acquire the plans for the Iron Curtain and learn it is a device that has the ability to make anything invulnerable. And in response, Einstein's working on his own secret weapon, the chronosphere, a device that can teleport Allied troops across the battlefield. The first tests were not great.
We made it disappear and reappear, but with very little control. We lost some men.
But I'm sure it'll be fine. The Soviets learn about the research and they launch an offensive to put an end to it. Through the efforts of the Allies' top commander, that's you, the project is protected long enough to get the chronosphere up and running. But the Soviets completed their own project, an atom bomb, and they plan to use it in cities across Europe. Unfortunately for Russia, not everyone was totally on board with Stalin's plan of turning Europe into a nuclear wasteland. Major Vladimir Kosygin is one of Stalin's key atomic strategists, and appalled at Stalin's plan, he defects to the Allies and he brings his knowledge with him. Megalomaniacs just can't trust anyone these days. With Kosygin's support, the Allies neutralized the missiles, the research, and the launch sites. With the Soviets' most powerful weapon off the board, the Allies make their way to the Soviet Union's heart, Moscow, Stalin himself. The Allies' chronosphere against the Soviets' completed Iron Curtain on the last stand of the USSR. And in the aftermath, Moscow has fallen, Stalin is dead, and the Allies stand victorious. The war was over. And the Allies hoped the peace would last, but it wouldn't. As the Allies celebrate victory, Stalin's successor, handpicked by US intelligence, Alexander Romanov, is installed as a puppet dictator. But with Romanov's psychic advisor Yuri whispering in his ear, "Yeah, we're doing psychics now, and we haven't even gotten to the attack squid," Romanov starts building an army in preparation for attacking the United States. Under the guise of quelling a rebellion, the Soviets placed troops in Mexico. With the aid of Yuri's psychic abilities, the Soviets shut down the American defenses and leave the US vulnerable to a full-scale Soviet invasion. Yuri places psychic beacons in Washington, brainwashing everyone in the area, including the US president. US forces are able to take down the beacon, but the president and his generals retreat to Canada for safety. Not that anywhere will be safe when the US learns that the Soviets are building a psychic amplifier in Chicago, a device strong enough to do to the world what they did to Washington. The Soviets really go all in on the psychic soldier thing, but we'll get there. The US forces manage to take down the amplifier, but at a cost. Without the amplifier, the Soviets have no need for Chicago, and they level the entire city with an atomic bomb. The unprecedented devastation finally gives the European nations the push they need to support the US in their war against the Soviets. And with the help of Europe comes Albert Einstein. With the weapons and technology designed by Einstein, the US is able to push the Soviets off of US soil, and they take the fight to Europe, then to the Kremlin, and to Romanov himself. With the aid of the chronosphere, Tanya is able to get inside the Kremlin, capture Premier Romanov, and put an end to World War III. But Yuri wasn't done yet, and he had his own plans for world domination. While the Soviets were losing ground to the Allies, Yuri was building his own army in secret. His followers built psychic dominators across the world and are ready to mind control everyone and bring them under Yuri's heel. The Allies are able to take out a Dominator on Alcatraz, creating a small opening in Yuri's network of control. Einstein has completed his time machine again, because this is a different timeline. This time travel stuff is going to get a lot more confusing, so just hang in there. The Commander and Tanya go back in time to before the Dominators were brought online and join up with the Allied forces to put an end to Yuri's plans before they get started. But with the Allied forces' eyes on Yuri, he accelerates his plans for world domination and kidnaps Einstein and forces him to work on his psychic Dominators. But when Einstein is rescued by Allied forces, Yuri is forced to pivot. He plans to kidnap world leaders and replace them with clones that are loyal to him. Kinda like the Skrulls plan in Secret Invasion, but with brainwashed clones. The cloning facility is destroyed and the war continues. And just like the first time, the Soviets end up surrendering to the Allies. But under the threat of Yuri, the world leaders decide to meet in a secret location to sign the peace treaty. Using his psychic abilities, Yuri learns the location of the secret meeting and sends his troops to kidnap the world leaders and kill Romanov. The Allied forces hold off Yuri and track the madman to his base in Antarctica and join with the Soviets for a full-scale assault. Yuri's stronghold is sieged and he's taken prisoner and locked in a psychic isolator, which will keep him and his psychic powers under wraps. Though severely weakened, the Soviets, for some reason, decide to launch an attack on Western Europe with one goal: steal Einstein's time travel research and use it to build their own time machine and go back and win the war. This time travel has worked out so well so far. The Soviets are repelled, but not before they get their hands on Einstein's time travel research. Once again, the Allies take the fight to Moscow. And with the Allied forces on their doorstep, Premier Romanov runs, while Colonel Anatoly Cherdenko, Tim Curry's best role since Wadsworth and Clue, General Nikolai Kirkov, and the lead of the time travel project, Dr. Zelinsky, with Peter Stormare reprising his role from Armageddon, used the newly completed time machine to go back to 1927 and kill Albert Einstein, the man responsible for the Allies' victory in World War II and III. The three return to their time to find Russia on the brink of complete control of Western Europe and Cherdenko as premier, when suddenly the Soviets are attacked by a new and fearsome enemy, George Takei, also the Empire of the Rising Sun. The Empire is trying to take advantage of a war-weary Allied and Soviet forces. The general orders the launch of their atomic bombs, but no Einstein, no atomic bombs, and the Soviets are left fighting a war on two fronts. The Soviets learn of the Empire's research into psychic soldiers. I told you we weren't done with the psychic soldiers. And kidnap one of the Empire's earliest psychic commandos, Izumi. In response, the Empire invades the Soviet Union, rescues Izumi, and destroys all research on their psychic commandos. Enraged, Izumi destroys a town full of civilians, and this spurs the Allied forces to attack the Empire directly. But with the help of Izumi and the psionic decimator, the Allies are pushed back. But they manage to capture Eureka Omega, another psychic commando. Eureka is kept in prison by the Allies, but escapes and lays waste to the facility after being psychically awoken by her sister Izumi. Eureka makes her way to the Shiro Sanitarium where her and her sister were created, to free her sister and end Dr. Shinji Shimada, the scientist in charge of her and her sister's creation, and the one who imprisoned Izumi. Why does anyone think making super soldiers is a good idea? It usually involves prisons and torture, and no one ever thinks it's a bad idea to torture someone who can kill you with their thoughts. But after Shimada's death, Izumi turns on Yuriko to kill her and become the strongest psychic commando. Because psychic commandos follow Highlander rules, I guess. Yuriko bests her sister and escapes the sanitarium. But enough about the side quest, let's go back to the main story. In Western Europe, the Allies are finally able to halt the march of the Soviets and actually start to gain ground. But the Empire attacks when both sides are weakened. With no other options, the Allies and the Soviets join forces against the Empire, against the wishes of the US president. Convinced the Soviets are planning a double cross, President Ackerman activates a weapon stationed at Mount Rushmore. Ever wonder why we carved a bunch of faces into a mountain? It was to hide a super laser. But the Allied forces managed to stop him in time and protect the fragile alliance with the Soviets. The Allies received word that the Empire's generals are all meeting in Tokyo, and they plan an offensive with the Soviets to take out the entire Empire's leadership in one fell swoop. But the Allies get betrayed. Apparently the Soviets took the whole US president trying to wipe them off the map thing kind of personally, and they leave the Allies to fight the Empire alone. Despite the setback, the Allies are still victorious over the Empire, and they receive word that Dr. Zelensky wants to defect. Zelensky tells the Allies how they went back in time to change the outcome of the war and created the empire itself. Zelensky also reveals that the Soviets have begun amassing their army in Cuba in a plan to attack the US. With the Soviets' plan revealed, the Allies devote their full forces to ending the Soviet threat, putting an end to World War IV. Or 3. 3, but again, so 3 part 2? Time travel's confusing. The war ends with Cherdenko and Kirchhoff arrested, and for some reason, David Hasselhoff is president. I said no good comes from time travel. And just when it seemed like the world was safe, the corporations attacked. Sort of. Despite their victory, the Allies are facing constant uprisings. Get it? From the Soviet and Empire territories. The Soviets' government has been dismantled and the Allies have taken control. But what's left of the Soviet army is rebelling against the Allied occupation. FutureTech, a research and development company that was instrumental in helping the Allies during the war, has been kidnapping Soviet scientists and forcing them to work on weapons projects that are being tested on Russian soil. Soviet forces conduct a series of attacks on FutureTech's research facilities and managed to destroy their newest weapon, a Sigma Harmonizer, a device capable of mind-controlling people that FutureTech and European Union leader Rupert Thornley were planning to use to control the world. Why is it always mind control? With FutureTech and Thornley's plans revealed, Thornley is forced to step down and the Allies retreat to secure things back home. Back in the Empire, Crown Prince Tatsu aids the Allies in quelling rebellions amongst the Empire. But once the unrest has been settled and the Empire's warlords have been defeated, Tatsu names himself Emperor and tries to push the Allies off their territory. The Empire's plans fail and the Allies make sure the Empire doesn't rise again. And that's a complete timeline of Command & Conquer Red Alert. From Einstein's first time travel to psychic puppets and alternate timelines and attack dolphins. Red Alert's the story of how every attempt to fix history just makes things worse. Maybe that's the most Command & Conquer thing of all. See you next time.